The rain hammered down like 1,000 accusations, each drop a reminder of the life she'd lost in a single, shattering phone call. Elena huddled under the sagging awning of a boarded-up diner, her thin jacket soaked through, clinging to ribs that ached from days without food. At 25, she was a ghost of the girl who'd once dreamed of art school scholarships and quiet mornings with coffee and canvases, before her father's voice, cold and final, had sliced through the line. "You're not our daughter anymore. Not after what you did." What she did. Loving a man who turned out to be a liar, a thief who drained her savings and left her broken, only for her parents to side with him, calling her the fool. The betrayal burned hotter than the hunger gnawing at her gut. She pressed her forehead against the wet brick wall, tears mixing with the downpour, whispering to the void, "This isn't me. This can't be real." But the emptiness inside echoed back, "It is." And in that moment, as thunder cracked like her fracturing soul, Elena realized she wasn't just starving for bread. She was starving for a reason to keep breathing. Elena's world had unraveled thread by thread, but she clung to the frayed edges with a ferocity born of disbelief. "It's temporary," she told herself each dawn, as she rifled through dumpster bins behind the corner bakery, the acrid stench of rotting dough twisting her stomach into knots. Temporary. That's what she repeated like a mantra, her voice a fragile thread in the cacophony of the city. The betrayal replayed in endless loops. Her ex, Daniel, with his charming smile and empty promises, siphoning her inheritance, meant for her mother's medical bills, into his gambling debts. When the truth surfaced, her parents hadn't raged at him. They turned on her, eyes filled with a disappointment sharper than any knife. "You brought this on us, Elena. Get out." The door slamming behind her still echoed in her nightmares, a final punctuation to the family she'd fought to hold together. Denial wrapped around her like a threadbare blanket, dulling the edges of her despair. She avoided the shelters, their fluorescent lights and echoing coughs too much like surrender. Instead, she wandered the upscale neighborhoods at dusk, where manicured lawns mocked her threadbare sneakers. The mansions loomed like judgmental giants, their windows glowing with warmth she could almost taste. One evening, as twilight bled into night, she collapsed against a wrought iron gate, the metal cold against her cheek. Hunger clawed at her insides, a beast that whispered of weakness. "Just ask," a small voice inside urged, but she shoved it down. Asking meant admitting defeat, meant the girl who'd once sketched sunrises on napkins was truly gone. That's when she saw him, or rather, heard him first. A low chuckle from the driveway, followed by the crunch of gravel under tires. A sleek black SUV pulled in, and out stepped Marcus Hale, the man whose face she'd glimpsed on billboards. Tech mogul, philanthropist, the black millionaire who'd risen from public housing to penthouses. His suit was tailored to perfection, but it was his eyes, kind, crinkled at the corners, that caught her off guard. He paused, umbrella in hand, spotting her silhouette against the gate. "Miss? You all right out there?" His voice was deep, laced with genuine concern, not the pity she'd braced for. Elena straightened, wiping rain from her face, her pride a flimsy shield. Words tumbled out before she could stop them, raw and desperate. "Please, I don't need much. Just let me live in your doghouse. I won't bother anyone. I'll clean, He blinked, lowering the umbrella, rain beating on his shaved head like diamonds. The security light flickered on, illuminating her gaunt cheeks, the hollows under her eyes. For a moment, silence stretched, broken only by the patter of rain. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed, not mocking, but warm, like he'd heard a punchline he admired for its audacity. "The doghouse. Honey, Rufus, that's my golden retriever, has better taste than that. Come inside. At least let me get you a hot meal." Denial cracked then, a hairline fracture, as she followed him up the flagstone path. The foyer was a world away from her cardboard bed under bridges, marble floors, a chandelier casting prisms like forgotten dreams. But the pain surged with the warmth, memories flooding in unbidden. She thought of her mother's frail hand in hers during chemo sessions, promising, "We'll make it, baby. Art will save us." Now, that promise felt like a lie, her sketches buried in a storage unit she couldn't afford. Marcus led her to the kitchen, a cavernous space of granite and stainless steel, where he busied himself with soup from the fridge, homemade, steaming with chunks of vegetables that made her mouth water involuntarily. As she sipped from a bowl too fine for her trembling hands, he sat across, not prying, just present. "Name's Marcus," he said finally. "And yours?" "Elena." The word felt foreign, like shedding a skin. They talked in fits and starts. He shared snippets of his own scars, foster care after his mother's overdose, nights sleeping in laundromats, the sting of doors slammed in his face by successful uncles who saw only a scared black kid with big dreams. "Pain's a teacher," he said, eyes distant. "But it don't define the lesson unless you let it." She nodded, but inside, the ache bloomed. That night, curled on a guest room couch, soft as clouds, scented with lavender, she wept silently. The betrayal wasn't just loss, it was erasure. Who was she without her family's anchor? The girl who'd trusted too easily, loved too fiercely? Denial whispered she could walk away at dawn, vanish into the city's veins. But the pain anchored her, a storm she couldn't outrun. In the quiet, a child's laughter echoed from a photo on the wall, Marcus with a niece, her tiny hand in his. It stirred something, a flicker of warmth, unearned but offered freely. For the first time in weeks, sleep came, fitful but real, dreams laced with colors she hadn't painted since the fall. The next days blurred into a tentative rhythm. Marcus didn't push. He simply existed as a steady presence. Mornings, he'd leave coffee on the counter with a note. "Paint if you want. Supplies in the sunroom." Afternoons, she'd wander the gardens, the dog, Rufus, a lumbering fluff of gold, trailing her like a silent companion. Interactions with his world crept in. The housekeeper, Maria, a wiry woman with silver-streaked hair and stories of her own immigrant hardships. "Mija, hunger ain't just in the belly," Maria said one afternoon, pressing a tamale into Elena's hands. "It's in the heart, too. Feed one, the other follows." Elena's internal war raged. "This isn't home," she'd argue with herself, staring at canvases gathering dust. "You're using him, like Daniel used you." But the pain softened in edges, revealing contours she'd ignored. The way sunlight filtered through leaves, patterns begging for brushstrokes. Small victories emerged, a sketch of Rufus dozing in the grass, lines fluid where once they'd been jagged. Yet denial lingered, a shadow warning of inevitable rejection. When Marcus invited her to a casual dinner with neighbors, strangers whose easy laughter filled the dining room, she froze at the threshold. "I can't," she whispered to her reflection in the hall mirror, seeing only the starving girl at the gate. He found her there, hands gentle on her shoulders. "You don't have to perform, Elena. Just be. That's enough. Be." The word hung, a lifeline in the torrent. That night, she joined them, words sparse but present, the warmth of shared stories chipping at her walls. A mentor in Marcus's circle, an older artist named Theo, gray-bearded, with paint-flecked overalls, leaned in during dessert. "Art's not about perfection, girl. It's about the mess, the heartbreak splashed on canvas. Yours will be the rawest yet." Pain twisted then, sharp as a fresh cut, but laced with something new, possibility. As the clock struck midnight, Elena slipped outside, the doghouse, a whimsical structure with a sloped roof and velvet cushions for Rufus, standing sentinel under stars. She sat on its edge, tears falling freely. "Let me live here," she murmured to the night, echoing her desperate plea. But now, it wasn't surrender, it was a question to herself. Could she claim space, even borrowed, without shame? Reflection came like dawn after endless night, slow, tentative, painting the edges of Elena's world in hues she'd long forgotten. Weeks in Marcus's home had woven her into its fabric, not as a guest, but as a quiet thread, mending her own frayed seams. The pain hadn't vanished. It lingered in the hollows of her cheeks, the way her hand trembled when she reached for a brush. But now, it coexisted with curiosity, a gentle probing of wounds she'd bandaged with denial. Mornings found her in the sunroom, sunlight spilling across blank canvases like an invitation. What if? Her inner voice murmured, no longer accusatory, but exploratory. What if the betrayal wasn't the end, but a brutal chisel shaping something unbreakable? Marcus became an unwitting mentor, his presence a compass in her fog. Not through lectures, but shared silences over breakfast, black coffee for him, herbal tea for her, steam curling like unspoken confessions. One crisp autumn afternoon, as leaves skittered across the lawn like errant thoughts, he found her sketching by the pond. Rufus splashed at ducks, oblivious to the profundity of the moment. "You're good," Marcus said, settling on the bench, his voice a low rumble. "Not just technically. It's the feeling, the way you capture the ache behind the beauty." Elena paused, charcoal smudging her fingers. "It's all ache," she admitted, the words slipping out like a held breath. Reflection demanded honesty, and in his steady gaze, she found the courage. She spoke of Daniel's lies, the way his affection had been a mask for greed, how her parents' rejection had carved out her core. "I thought love was earning it, proving your worth. But I gave everything, and it wasn't enough." He nodded, eyes tracing the horizon. "I know that road. Grew up thinking success would silence the doubters. The teachers who said a black kid from the projects couldn't code his way to the top. The investors who saw my skin before my pitch. Built Hail Tech to prove him wrong. But honey, the real shock? It don't fill the hole. That comes from within, from forgiving yourself first." His words landed like rain on parched earth, stirring ripples. That evening, as shadows lengthened, Elena wandered into the study, Marcus's domain of leather-bound books and glowing screens. A photo caught her eye, him at 20, gangly and grinning, arm around a boy who mirrored his features. "My brother," he explained, joining her. "Lost him to the streets when I was clawing my way up. Guilt ate me alive. Why him, not me? Reflection taught me, grief's a river, not a wall. You cross it, or it drowns you." Tears pricked, but she let them fall, a small victory in vulnerability. Their talks deepened, weaving through evenings by the fire. He introduced her to Lila, his niece, a whirlwind of 8-year-old energy with braids like midnight rivers and questions sharper than tacks. "Auntie Elena," Lila chirped one Saturday, dragging her to the backyard swing set. "Why do your pictures look sad-happy? Like when I miss Mommy, but remember her hugs." The child's innocence pierced Elena's armor, sparking warmth amid the chill of memory. "Because life is both, sweet girl," she replied, pushing the swing gently. "The sad makes the happy shine brighter." Lila's laughter, pure and unfiltered, was a balm, a reminder that joy could bloom from fractured soil. In those interactions, wisdom flickered, from Lila's unscarred wonder, from Maria's tales of crossing borders with nothing but hope, from Theo's visits, where he'd critique her canvases not with judgment, but with nods of recognition. "See that stroke there? That's rage turning to fire. Own it." Struggles persisted, relatable in their quiet tyranny. Nights brought flashbacks, Daniel's sneer, her father's turned back, pulling her from sleep and sweats. She'd pace the moonlit garden, internal dialogue a battlefield. "You're worthless, a burden." But growth whispered back, "You're surviving." That's strength. Small victories accumulated like brushstrokes on a canvas. Finishing a full painting, a stormy seascape where waves crashed but reformed. Sharing it with Marcus over dinner, his praise a mirror reflecting her worth. The pivotal moment unfolded on a blustery November eve. Guests gathered for one of Marcus's informal salons. Artists, entrepreneurs, a mix of souls seeking connection. Elena hovered at the edges, reflection urging her forward, fear tugging back. When conversation turned to resilience, eyes turned to her. "Elena," Theo prompted, "what's the hardest lesson you've learned?" The room hushed. She stood, heart pounding, the starving girl at the gate rising like a specter. "I asked to live in a doghouse once," she began, voice steadying. "Not because I had no pride, but because I thought that's all I deserved, scraps of kindness, hidden away so I wouldn't taint the world." Gasps rippled, Marcus's eyes widened, a stranger's brow furrowed. "But being here, it's shown me something shocking, maybe to everyone, even myself. I deserve the house. Not the scraps. Not because of what I can give, but because I exist. Wounded, yes, betrayed, broken, but still worthy of light." Silence, then applause, thunderous and real. Marcus rose, enveloping her in a hug that smelled of sandalwood and safety. "That's the shock, Elena. You shocked us all, by claiming your place." In the days that followed, growth solidified. She enrolled in community art classes, her first exhibit a modest affair, but hers. Waves and wounds rendered in vivid oils. Interactions with Lila evolved into mentorship. The girl's crayon drawings now hung beside Elena's works, a testament to past torches. Marcus became family, not savior, a partner in reflection, their evenings filled with laughter that chased shadows. As winter thawed into tentative spring, Elena stood at the pond, canvas in hand, painting not ache but emergence, a figure rising from turbulent waters, arms outstretched to sun. Internal peace settled, a quiet knowing. She'd traversed denial's fog, pain's abyss, reflection's mirror, emerging in growth's embrace. Self-acceptance wasn't erasure of scars, it was wearing them as badges, threads in a tapestry of renewal. In the quiet bloom of that spring morning, Elena realized the true renewal, not in grand gestures or external validations, but in the soft permission to rebuild from within. She was no longer the starving girl at the gate, but a woman whole, scarred, yes, but radiant in her right to occupy space, to love fiercely again, to create without apology. Emotional peace wrapped her like sunlight, a promise that healing was not linear, but a spiral upward, each turn revealing deeper strength. And in that peace, she whispered to the wind, "I am enough. I always was." Moral of the story: true healing blooms not from denying our wounds or fleeing our pain, but from reflecting on them with compassion and allowing small acts of courage to cultivate an unshakable inner strength, one that whispers, in the face of betrayal or loss, "You are worthy of the table, not just the scraps."